Yep. Bye. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I think we are finally live on Facebook. We've had some technical difficulties, so I appreciate you all being patient, and thank you to my guests for being so patient. I am Ann Dillard. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the host of Team Talk Live. Technical difficulties. I'm just really glad to be here and glad that we could do the show tonight. So as you come in, share it out. Thank you. So that other people can get an idea of what we're talking about tonight. We're continuing our series on domestic violence awareness, and tonight we're talking specifically about teen dating violence, and we're taking a closer look at Zora from the Greenleafs. So I am so glad that you all are here. Hey, Krista. Hey, Laverne. Thanks for joining us. Remember to share this out. Hey, Dr. Ritchie. Thank you for being here. We are taking a closer look at teen dating violence tonight, and we're looking at Zora from the Greenleafs. Again, I'm Ann Dillard, and I'm excited to be here with you. And before we get started, before I introduce my guest, I want to invite you to join me tomorrow night for a free webinar. And the title of it is Healthy Relational Messages. You know, we are always told that this relationship is not healthy, that relationship is not healthy. But who is teaching us really what a healthy relationship looks like, right? So tomorrow night from 8 to 10 Eastern, I will be doing a free webinar on healthy relational messages. So I'm going to post the link in this in the comment section, so you can sign up and get the link to join us tomorrow night. All right. So let's get started. I want to say welcome so much to my guest, Heather Duke. Heather, thank you for being here, and thank you for being so patient because we had so many technical difficulties tonight. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, hi everyone. Well, my name is Heather Duke. I come from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a marriage family therapist intern. It's a passion of mine to work with couples. I just completed my practicum where I was able to work with couples, and it's a very interesting dyad working with them. And from there, that sparked me to get my level 1 training in Gottman as well as level 2 training. And the Gottmans are specialists when it comes to relational work.
Well, excellent. Congratulations on getting your level 1 and your level 2 training in Gottman work. And well-respected work in our field. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So let's get started with our discussion tonight. We're talking about teen dating violence, but we're taking a look at that through the lens of Zora from the Greenleafs. So go ahead and give us a little background on Zora.
Okay. You want me to?
Yeah, tell us about her, like set up her family, and for those of you who don't watch Greenleaf.
Okay. Well, Greenleaf first off, it's a wonderful show for African Americans. What it encompasses and covers, and it produces positive image of African American women and men. So I definitely like where Oprah Winfrey is going with the show Greenleaf. Now, covering the topic of Zora, Zora comes from a religious background. Both her grandparents, her grandmother's a first lady, her grandfather is a pastor, and it's very interesting. She comes from this positive religious family, but however, Zora has entered into a very risky relationship, specifically domestic violence, but it's teen domestic violence. So it was interesting because when I was watching Zora in the relationship, I couldn't immediately call it domestic. I was like, I felt funny. I'm like, is this truly domestic violence? Because I know there's also situational violence. It wasn't the domestic violence that we typically see when you see a couple that is deemed domestic violence, because there was subtle signs and cues that let me know, okay, she's not in something healthy, from her boyfriend tended to be very controlling. He would intimidate her through stares, through looks. He sometimes would put his hands on her, and it was interesting how Zora always covered for him. But what I like is that Zora had a personality where I didn't think those girls with that specific personality would allow a guy to treat them the way that she was being treated. And I definitely liked how she had her cousin come in who was always pulling her to the side, telling her, Zora, this isn't you. You wouldn't allow this. Like, why is this happening? And not to get so carried off. I like that Zora had her cousin as the advocate because a lot of times when we're mirrored in those specific relationships, we can't see we're even entering domestic violence and we don't have anybody that pulls us to the side.
Right. Well, you said a whole lot there, so let's unpack some of that a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
So Zora, she presents this really strong personality. And working with teens for all these years, when I look at Zora's personality, it on the outside, it seemed like she wouldn't take no stuff. She wouldn't put up with any of this. But understanding teens a little bit with her personality and the things that she was doing, it was definitely red flags to say, okay, something's going on here. Something is going on beneath the surface. She's crying out for something. Even before the Isaiah, the character, entered the scene. Okay. You could tell, by the little things she was doing with her cousin, even though her cousin was such a big advocate for her, right? Mm-hmm. You could tell by her sneaking around, and she started, she wanted to ditch school, or she ditched the youth group, and things like that. So that left me real quizzical and curious about, okay, what else is going on with Zora? What did you think about that?
That's interesting because, okay, so I want to go to where her mother and where her parents find out this happens. And it's something that her mother says to the husband and says, it's something within Zora that is broken, where she feels that she needs to tolerate this. Like, I gave birth to this girl, but yet she feels broken. And it piggybacks to what you're saying. There was signs of her brokenness coming out through skipping the youth group and specifically attracting that type of energy and that type of guy. And that is so key. And it's interesting because when you think of someone coming from someone taking domestic violence in a relationship, you always piggyback to the family or what did they see growing up in the childhood. But she was so centered around positivity and faith and religion and loving like aspects. Just her and her grandparents came with issues, but it wasn't drunk and seeing them beat and cursing and swearing. And her parents were trying to make their marriage work, though it had pitfalls. So it said, wow, what made Zora feel so broken? And yet she came from a background where you usually would think people that those positive backgrounds will not walk into that situation. But like her mom said, her something is inside of her daughter. Something is broken. Yeah.
So now that is a really good point. Now, yeah, they try to cover stuff up, and yes, her mom and dad have their own stuff going on. Hey, you guys, thanks for joining. Sister Sandy, thanks for joining. Hey, Joseph, hey, baby, thanks for joining. Cammie, I'm glad you are here. And Lakeisha, thanks for joining. Make sure you share and comment so we you can get in on this discussion. Okay, so you said, for a family who presents to have it all together, like they're intact and stuff like that, maybe Zora knew more than they thought she did.
I know what you're saying.
Right? Because a lot of times as parents, we don't necessarily realize how much our kids know.
That's so true.
Because as parents, right, we try to cover things up. We try to spare them from this, spare them from that. But the reality is a lot of times they know more than we think they know. So I'm wondering, what else does Zora know that nobody is talking about and everybody's trying to sweep under the rug or is trying to avoid? And that brokenness in her, is that her being broken or is that the family being broken?
I think the family. I think that is metaphor to what's going on with her aunt and the Uncle Mac issue. That interest psyche type. You pick up your environment, what's going on, because that's a huge area. You know, so yeah,
And so
I surrender on that.
right, because, and the reason why I brought that up, right, because as a teen therapist, a lot of times parents will bring their teens in and it's like, fix them and send them back to me. But as a marriage and family therapist, one of the things that I have to do and have to be careful about doing, and it takes time to do this, is to look at everything. Look at it, what we call ecologically. Look at what other components in their environment could be potentially contributing to the problems that they're showing. So like you just pointed out, look, did Uncle Mac get a hold of Zora?
Right.
You never know. So what else? So, it's easy for them to say she's broken, but what causes that brokenness? Or
Right.
is the family, is she a representation of the family?
I think a representation of the family. You nailed it.
Because usually in families, there is one person who they identify as the sick one, who carries the symptoms of what's really going on in the family.
That's so true.
Yeah. So let me see what Lakeisha says. Lakeisha says, I think it is also connected to how the family treated her father. Oh, I think you're onto something there, because when you're looking at the whole family system with Zora, and again, we're still talking about teen dating violence, but we're talking about some of the things, the risk, what we call risk factors, which are things that could contribute to a person being more susceptible to being in a relationship like this. So let's talk about Ruben and the way his parents treat him.
Well, you can.
Because, okay, so I'm thinking about Ruben, okay, being the only boy. Okay. And he's doing everything that he can to seek his dad's approval.
Pressure. Yeah, I could.
Right? And so I'm like, okay, so what's going on with him and his dad? I remember his mom, how she talks down to him, and then I also wonder about Lakeisha. I'm thinking about not just that, but what's going on with him and his wife, because she was highly distracted with somebody else at work.
Yeah.
So all those different components is happening, and Zora is the one that's showing it, and in essence saying, y'all help. Help somebody, help. Go ahead.
I was going to add in too his sister passing and the way he has to process the death of his sister, knowing his uncle did it. That's eating at him too. And then you said he's seeking a dad's approval, and then his sister is on the rails about going after Uncle Mac, and that can be a pull. Like, is his mind really? And this is the thing. I felt sometimes the father was tuning out. Like, he's focused on his family unit, but he has such a larger family unit where he comes from that his attention is towards. And that death of the sister and going after Uncle Mac, that can pull and where you can have blinders, because there were certain things his wife picked up on Zora's guy, and I felt at times oblivious, or maybe he was just trying to give the guy a chance. He didn't see it. And usually the dads quickly pick up on hey, this guy is not good for my daughter, but it was the mother playing that fatherly role. Like, I don't like him for her, you know.
Right.
And it was just one scene when he caught her in the bedroom, and I felt he would have reacted, you know, most days, let me get my shotgun, like, get out of here. But he said, oh, remember what I told you about the rules and it's time for you to go. I just thought that he would have reacted a little bit more to him. I don't know if he was trying to buy her guy friend. I'm not sure, but maybe he was, like you said, he's got a lot going on in his family. So was he distracted a little bit?
Well, I think both parents were distracted.
Yeah.
Hey, Jackie, thanks for being here. Hey, Michelle, thanks for joining us. We're talking about teen dating violence tonight on Teen Talk Live. So I think both parents were distracted because I
Okay.
remember the dad once saying to the mom, "You need to go see about your daughter. She can use your attention."
I remember that part. That was
Right.
powerful.
So I think both of them were distracted, and then see, the thing about it is a lot of times as parents, when things like this come up, sometimes we I think in therapy they call it, we do more of the same. So we give more of the same kind of punishment or consequences and stuff like that. So what Ruben, the dad, was doing was he was turning up the heat even more, but that's not answering to any of her problems.
Exactly.
She just continues to derail and to go astray.
That is so true.
So let's talk to hey Chrissy, thanks for being here and thanks for sharing also. So let's talk to parents of teens. What are some of the signs that they can look for to if they think that their teens are in a domestic violence? Well, first of all, let's talk about what are some of the areas of domestic violence. I think that's key, because
Okay.
a lot of times people think if you're not seeing bruises or you're not being hit, then you're not a part of a domestic abuse situation. So do you
Right.
have some other areas that you can share?
I think, well, I wanted to go back to when you had first said what are some of the signs, and I
Yeah.
wanted to say being too distracted. If your teen is too distracted with something or someone, that's a clear sign something is going on. And Greenleaf alerted me to that because Zora was highly distracted by that text in her cell phone, and that was her guy. And it's interesting because today we have the Apple phones and we're always texting and looking. So at first I was like, well, that's how we communicated, that's how teens communicate. But it was a little bit too much. Like if she didn't get on that phone, he was going to get after her. So I think paying attention to that aspect with the teen culture, and it goes back to what the teen culture is interesting. I was doing some research and they said that 9% of teens are in the CDC said are experiencing abuse. However, they said what's interesting is that teen boys said when the girls hit them, they don't necessarily identify that as abuse. That's just they're just hitting us, and they don't identify hitting each other as any type of domestic abuse. That's just them being teens. But they said some of the things to look for is the verbal abuse, how they're talking to each other. Like if the guy is demeaning and yelling and pointing and intimidating, that's a sign. Bullying, that is some of the key things you can start to look at. And being controlled, you don't feel you always have to, I need to dress this way. I'm gonna stop. It gets into your weight, your clothes, your habits change, and everything is built around this new friend, new boyfriend. So I think that some of the parents need to look at the time management of their teens, how they're being distracted, their focus, and how is that behavior. Have you noticed your daughter starting to be feel like she's constrained or controlled by something or someone? And it starts to show up. Because with Zara, it showed up. I gotta go to band practice. He needs me there. I gotta pick up the phone. If I don't pick up the phone, he's gonna get on me. You can start to hear your teen say little things and react nervously. And that's where I think it needs to be a sit down. But it's kind of hard to sit down with a teen and say, "Hey, are you being abused?" I mean, you know how teens are, so you have to get creative. So I don't know. Do you go to one of her girlfriends and ask, "How's my daughter starting to act with this new guy?" Because I'm not always around. And like Zora had her cousin who didn't mind talking, was an advocate.
Right. Those are awesome. Let me back up. I made a mistake. I said Ruben is the dad. Thanks, babe, for correcting me. It's Jacob.
Okay, okay.
My bad. It's Jacob. So dad is Jacob. And Margaret, hey Margaret, welcome. This is one of our favorite topics to talk about. She said that's good. Hey Travis, thanks for stopping in. And June, thanks for being here. Linda, thank you for being here. And Linda says, say it, sister. So, okay. So those are some of the signs, right? Being feeling like you're constrained, feeling like you're controlled. How about isolation?
Yeah. Oh,
That's
yes.
that's
Definitely.
another sign. But it's hard to tell about isolation in teens now because a lot of people think that it's just a part of the teen culture to want to be in their rooms all the time and be on their phones and be away from the family. But I think it's necessary that parents set rules and expectations
Mm-hmm.
about family time and when is phone time, when the phones are allowed or if they're allowed
I
in the
like
room.
that. Mm-hmm.
So it's parents still have some level of control over that, but they
True.
have to be willing to be engaged,
That is so
right?
key. And
And
exercise the authority.
exactly. And then anger outbursts and things like that, those change a swift change in behaviors. And
Grace. Like,
yeah, and what if your teen is the abuser?
mm, that's deep.
I think as parents we need to look at that also. What if is your teen acting possessive and jealous over his or her significant other,
Mm.
right? Is your teen, what kind of behaviors are you noticing in your teen? And it doesn't always have to be the guy, the boy that's the one that's
It
abusive.
could be the girl. Yeah. And how they're talking to each other. That's a key sign. That verbal abuse. Because you know, with teens, it's so free how they talk. Girl, get over here. And as you get older, you have a decorum how you say things. So sometimes you have to catch, okay, are they just being teens and playing, or is this becoming rough verbal talk and abuse? Is it treading that way?
And I'm, as a mother of grown children, I believe
Right.
that if you hear the talk, you need to check it, even if it's
Amen.
teen talk,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we have to teach our young people how to be respectful to each other.
So true.
Because nobody is deserving of disrespect, and if you don't teach them how to be respectful, they won't know that there is an expectation or what healthy relationships even look like.
That is so true.
And so a lot of that is in the conversation. Okay, so other people might talk to their boyfriends or their girlfriends like that, but that's not how I'm
July.
raising you to talk to somebody,
Exactly. I like
you
that.
know.
That's true.
So I think parents have to be really proactive. And then if you observe name calling and
Mm.
put downs is really big when people are using a lot of sarcasm and a lot, because sarcasm is not, a lot of people use sarcasm, but it's nothing funny about sarcasm.
It's not. It's not.
It's actually a defense mechanism and it's very painful,
Mm.
right? And
Or cruel joking, that joking,
right,
teasing. Hmm.
exactly. And the person, when you look at the other person on the receiving end, they might act like they're smiling or laughing to save face, but that's still not okay.
Right. The nervous laugh.
Right. You can't
Hmm.
really go by their response.
Okay, that's key. That's
Yeah,
something for me to look out for. Because
right.
sometimes if you see the response, it's like, oh, well, they're laughing, they're tough, they took it. But were they just, that was a mask, like you're saying? Okay. a front.
Exactly. And so also when your teens start giving away things that's important to him or her,
Mm.
because a large percent, well, let me see. So here's a statistic that I want to read. It says 50% of youth who report domestic violence and rape also report attempting suicide
Mm.
because they can't find
Big.
any way to get out of it. Okay. um
That's
and
true.
so it's so important. So if your teen starts giving away important things, and they start giving up time with the family and time with their friends, and they're lacking, or they stop being interested in stuff, I think, or activities. I think that's really important to look at it a little closer.
Okay, that's true.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then those unexplained injuries. Now, Zora was able to cover up her injuries a lot
She was. Yeah,
until
we
she
saw
went
that.
to the cotillion, right?
Cotillion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So those unexplained injuries, that's a really, really big sign of teen partner abuse. And this one I thought was really important. If you notice that the teen partner is abusive to other people,
Okay.
and or abusive to animals,
Yes.
that's a big one.
The one. Yeah.
Chances are they are abusive to your child or to their partners.
Okay.
And so I think those are really key things for parents to look at, or not just parents, but people in the lives of teenagers, to look at those things, and call them on it, and set an example, be an example for them.
That is
So
so
what do you
true.
think is going to happen with Zora?
Oh wow. I don't. You know what? Zora is interesting, and I just wanted to tie in. She was extremely intelligent. She had a 4.2 GPA. So I want Zora to just really come into her own, and she just had a really unique personality. I and that something about her personality really like it stood out to me. It caught me. She has that potential to do anything, become anyone, and I'm hoping that Zora can really step back from what she's in because sometimes when you're in something and you reach that age, you can't see how this is going to really affect you. I just want Zora to tap into her potential. Like, what is there? Is she gonna be like a singer, like one of her aunts? What is she gonna do in the church specifically that's gonna open up doors? Because most times I notice when you walk through domestic violence situations or relationships, it's always something that comes that merges out of that. So I'm hoping that Zora just becomes such a butterfly in this whole situation because her cousin seems to know who she is already and knows what she's not going to take and who she's about to become. And I've seen characters like Zora when I was in high school. They have the personality, the drive, the look, the grades, but somehow they get succumbed to those yucky guys and they never reach their potential. Because
Um,
Zora can do anything right now because she's 18, but I'm scared. What
is
if
she
after
18 yet? She not
how,
18.
how does Zora?
I don't think she's 18 yet.
Okay,
They told her you need to follow the rules at least till you're 18. But
okay.
I think she's waiting to be 18 so she can leave.
See, and that's when I'm scared. I'm scared because Zora. I feel like Zora's one of those girls that she doesn't know what she has, and then once it's too late, she's like all the choices I could have made, while her cousin soars.
So why my question goes back to how come she doesn't know what she has? What is
Wow.
the damage? What is causing that block in her that she's unable to see what she's had, and the idea of being with somebody that beats her is
Mm.
more intriguing than being with a family that supposedly love and support her.
It goes back to what you said. That family has those skeletons, and that family broken, and she probably doesn't. Oh, the side I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay,
Okay.
I think I muted somehow. So my sister says she's 18. I didn't realize she was 18 already.
Okay. I figured as much. Yeah. Okay. I heard something in that, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so why
Uh
is she
oh.
more intrigued by what's out there that's damaging to her than the safety of her home?
Maybe she feels like her family is already damaged. Damage attracts damage.
Gotcha.
Because it goes back to what you're saying, how her family looks now and what everything that's happening. It does appear like it's a broken family, though they have the money, the prestige, the religion. How her grandmother is, the role her grandmother takes on. It's a lot that packs from that grandmother, who's the matriarch of the family, and now she's dealing with her issue. Just to tie in, she found out her husband had an affair with her sister. So it's a lot of things going on that Zara's huh?
She's not clean either.
Right, all right. But I'm just saying it's a lot. It's a lot going on.
Because Grace, truth be told, Bishop ain't Grace's dad. No, that's my that's
I'm like, wait, what? That's why the girl is out the rails with the guy. Okay, yeah. She does. I wonder. Oh, I want to throw that out there. I wonder does Zora feel like there's safety within her family? She can have a refuge in the family.
okay. So I'm missing a couple of episodes. Y'all gotta forgive me on that.
Oh, so am I. So
I'm
yeah,
missing a couple of episodes. She said she just turned 18 and left. Oh my goodness, I gotta get caught up.
me too.
And like, yes, Simone, we just talked about it. Did Uncle Matt get a hold of her?
Oh,
And
wow.
everybody is so busy dealing with their own stuff that they're not paying attention to her or to even observe. That's why I was saying the parents are distracted.
Mm,
Everybody's distracted in their own stuff, that they're not necessarily paying attention to what has happened to her or what is happening to her. So
that is
yeah, I
so
got to
true.
catch up on that episode. I didn't realize she turned 18 and left.
Me too. I gotta catch up.
Yeah, and so that's something. So then what do parents do? If you all are watching, we're talking about teen dating violence, and it's important. I believe it's important how parents approach this if they believe that their teens are in a domestic violence situation. I think it's really, really important how parents approach it, because you can do like their dad, was their dad's name Jacob. You could do
Hmm.
like Jacob and come down really hard, which then isolates her more
Exactly.
and continues to break her trust or her sense of protection, right?
Mm,
Or, there are some parents who just don't know how, and they just check out,
that's so true.
you know. And so I
Mm.
think it's really important. So some of the tips that I have, or if you had anything to say, go ahead, because I had a couple of tips on what parents can do.
Oh no, you can go. Share the
Okay,
tips.
so you can tell your team that you are concerned about their safety. Um,
Sure.
but one of the big mistakes that parents make, and I say some mistakes because when you try to cut off the relationship, even though that's what you want to do, and natural instincts say keep them away, lock them up,
Mhm.
send them, go live with another relative. A lot of
Mhm.
times when you try to cut off, the more you try to cut off the relationship, the more they are attracted to
Onto
that
it.
relationship,
Mhm.
because if you're
Yep.
not careful, that leads you as the parent into some abusive area as well,
True.
right? And
So
so
true.
it's really important, even though that's what you would want to do. So point out what is happening and point out what healthy relationships look like versus what you see in this relationship, and continue to talk about it, and also offer professional support for your team to give them a safe place with confidentiality where they can work through um,
Their issues.
causes of why they are gravitating to this kind of behavior. I think that's really, really important. I
So
think the
true.
worst thing you can do is be isolated,
I
because
agree.
in that isolation, that teen gets to they define their own rights and their own wrong, and they need your help at that time to define
Mm.
what's right or what's wrong with this relationship. So I think it's important to be supportive, be understanding, but also be in a role where you're sharing that what facts are and what healthy relationships are, and putting them in a place where they can get additional help and support.
That's true. And I was just going to additionally say just know your team's friends because that will say a lot. Get to know them, invite them over because that can tell you a lot about what's going on.
That is so important,
Hmm.
because at least, I mean, if you know their friends, you can give some heads up. And the
Mm.
thing about it is is to build a relationship with your teen before they get to the point where they're in a relationship with somebody else.
Oh,
So
that's
if
so
you
true.
already have a heads up on the relationship, a good relationship with your teen, chances are they'll still value your input and value your opinions. And so it's hard when you don't have that relationship and you see them um, going off the track, and trying to pull them, reel them back in, is more difficult because
That's
you
so
don't have that
true.
relationship.
I agree.
So it's really interesting. Simone said Simone pointed out that Zara is now 18 and gone, so I need to check it out some more. And um, but I just thought this was a well-known character. My clients and I talk about her every week.
Oh, wow.
And
Excellent.
they were telling me that I need to get caught up, and I guess that's what they were like, I'm not telling you, you got to get caught up. So I guess that's what I needed to get caught up on. But that's
Same
a
here.
point of discussion, and it helps me in the therapy room also to bring about some, to get an idea of where their minds are. What are they thinking about? What do they think is healthy? What do they think is not?
That is so true.
So
I
yeah,
agree.
so Heather, any closing remarks that you have about teen dating violence?
Wow, I think that this topic needs to continuously be explored and talked about as we move into an era of technology because technology is shaping the way our teens are communicating with each other. There's a lot of sexting. The world of Facebook is creating and shaping the relationships, what's going on there, cyberbullying, all those aspects that can give an outlet to abuse. So that's important and try to always find a way to talk with your team before they even enter a relationship and don't shy away from the conversations about boys or drugs or sex. Those I would say have those uncomfortable conversations and get into their world, whatever TV programs they're into, whatever their interests are, because then that creates a dialogue between you and your child.
Right, right. It's something because there was this one series that was on. I think it was, what was it called? Something 13,
13 reasons.
13 reasons,
I
right?
think so. Yep.
I remember that, and a lot of parents got really scared when it came out, and
Yeah.
they were talking about how graphic it was, and I knew that my clients were watching it, and what I encouraged the parents to do was to watch it with their child, so they can
Hmm.
have a conversation about it and understand where their child's thinking is.
So true.
Because if a lot of times, if you just say don't watch it, don't do that, chances are they are going to do it just because you say don't.
Don't.
And so if you do it with them, that gives you an opportunity to point out different things and use it as a teaching opportunity.
And I was just going to also add in, don't ever think, well, you're young, you're teens, it's the best time of your life. What do you have to be worried about or pressured about? And being a teen is a social experiment. Their looks, prom, dating, popularity, doing well in school. That's their world. So, and that's their pressure and peer pressure, drinking, smoking, and engaging in sex and being cool. That can cause a teen to want to kill themselves or think about the suicide ideations. That can cause that. So that's so important with what's going on nowadays. And it was something Michelle from Destiny's Child said. She was like, she internalized so much from what she saw growing up. She came from a religious family. She swept things under the rug, and her depression got out of hand because she wasn't able to talk about it. What do you, and she would say, they would say, what do you have to be depressed about?
Right.
You know, so have the conversation no matter what. And understand that my teen is 16, they could be depressed. Let me check in with them.
Yeah.
You know, very
Yeah.
key.
And I think as parents, sometimes we put on that parental hat and we minimize their experiences, but to them, in their world, that's huge. And that could be overbearing and causing a lot of stress and a lot of pressure that they're not equipped to deal with.
Amen.
So that's really critical. Well,
Amen.
I thank you all so much for joining us tonight on Teen
Yes.
Talk Live. We're talking about teen dating violence. Share this video out so that other people can learn. We shared some tips about what to do. We talked about Zora and her dad, and her dad Jacob. I did refer to him as Reuben. I don't know where that came from. That's probably
He looked like a Reuben.
that's probably from another show, right? But just reaching out, and a good point that you made is to make sure to build a relationship with the child before they even start dating, so that you can continue to be the voice of reason in that
Yes.
child's mind, and share, even though it seems like they're not listening. Share, 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 because they are hearing you,
True.
even though it seems like they might have tuned you out. But I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for this conversation. And
Thank
as we
you.
continue to talk about domestic violence awareness, I want you to know that tomorrow night, which will be Tuesday, October 23rd, I'll be hosting a free 2-hour webinar on healthy relational messages. So we always talk about that's not healthy, or, you need to be in a healthy relationship, but who's teaching us how to be healthy? And that's
Mm.
what we're going to explore tomorrow night. And I'm going to drop the link in the comment section, and I want you to register and join us. It's a free 2-hour webinar. All right. Any closing remarks from you, Heather?
No, I just want to say I think this was such a wonderful experience tonight, video chatting with different people from all over. And I hope that we can keep the conversation going. Pray that we can keep it going when this goes offline. Sit around a table and talk with our teens and friends about this issue, the silent issue sometimes it can become in our community
Excellent.
or abroad.
Excellent. Yes. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for joining this conversation about teen dating violence. This has been another episode of Teen Talk Live, and join me tomorrow for our workshop. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night, everyone.